Today on the channel, I'm going to answer viewer questions. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to answer viewer questions. A couple of weeks ago I posted on my YouTube community and on Instagram that I was going to do another one of these videos. This is my second video that I've done now for viewer questions and answers. If this is something you want me to continue, please let me know. It's kind of fun, and it's something different for content on the page. Before we get started, I wanted to wish everybody happy holidays. As of the videotaping of this video, it is December 13th, and we're just a couple weeks away from Christmas. So if you celebrate Christmas, or if you celebrate Hanukkah, or whatever season you celebrate, if you're just happy to be with your families, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all those good things, blessings to all of you. I really look forward to doing videos on the channel. I'm very grateful for all of my viewers, and it's really wonderful to be able to share guitar lessons and content with everybody. I really enjoy the community. The engagement has really made this year special for me, so thank you very much. All right, well, let's get started with questions. We've got a few here for today. The first question we're going to go with is from BMac50, and BMac writes, "Hi Marty, I know that Eddie and his music are your favorite. Is there any other type of music that you listen to or would like to play? And would you ever consider writing and recording an album?" All right, so that's a good question. So, Van Halen are one of my favorite groups. They're not my absolute favorite of all time. I can't say I've got an all-time favorite band. They probably are tied with my favorite band, but I love Led Zeppelin. I love the Beatles. I love Pink Floyd. Those are probably my top bands of all time. It's hard to pick a favorite, right? It's like food. You really like steak or you really like spaghetti, but you don't want to eat the same thing all the time, right? But yeah, certainly Eddie is by far my favorite guitar player of all time. But as far as a band, I like to listen to I like to listen to classic rock. I listen to a lot of pop. I listen to a lot of punk. I do listen to some country. I'm pretty eclectic. I went to music school and studied music theory and orchestration. I listen to some Bach. I like a lot of Bach classical music. I love Bach's fugues. The organ fugues are fantastic. I used to listen to a lot of instrumental guitar music. I listen to some instrumental guitar music, but not so much anymore. Pretty much if I listen to instrumental guitar music these days, it's typically Joe Satriani. I know that's kind of cliche, and I listen to the Ventures. I love my Ventures LPs. I put on all my old Ventures records, and I can just kick back and listen to Ventures all night. I love that twangy, surf, echoey Ventures stuff. Let's see, what the other part of this question was, would I ever consider writing or recording an album? Yeah, I've recorded 2 instrumental records in the past. They're not for release anymore, but I should release them again. But back in early 2002 and 2004, I released an album under the name of Rat Bastard, and the album was called The Other White Meat, and then I did a follow-up record called Son of the Other White Meat. I should post some of that stuff on YouTube. That'd be kind of fun. I've done about 6 or 7 albums since I've lived in Nashville. I had a pretty successful little band called Snow Black Sunday. We cut 3 records. I had a band called Dead Hollywood Stuntmen, and we did 1 record, and a side project from that was called Rattlesnake Chivalry, and we did an album recently within the past few years under that name. So Dead Hollywood Stuntmen and Snow Black Sunday are on iTunes and YouTube if anybody's interested in looking at that. Yeah, I've recorded several albums in the past. I'd like to still record an album in the future, but right now YouTube's my focus, and I do my own instrumental music to this day. So many of my songs are debuted on my YouTube channel. All the stuff that you hear throughout the videos, at the outros, during interludes during my videos, those are all instrumental songs that I've written that I do for the channel or I've done in the past. All right, good question, good question. Let's go on to the next one. The next question is from Tyler Johnston Guitar. He says, love the channel. Thanks, Tyler. I really appreciate your support, man. You comment all the time, and you're really fun to interact with, so I appreciate that. Thank you. What advice do you have for a new guitar player or new guitar YouTuber, younger player working on their debut solo album? Okay, I would say play to your strengths. So whatever you seem to do best, what's your forte? What is the thing that you do the best? I would say play to those strengths and work on material that showcase what you do best. Okay, if there's something that you are struggling to do or that you're working on, you can perfect it and continue to work on it, but it may be easiest for you to put your best foot forward, play to your strengths. If you're a blues player, work on blues-oriented songs. If you're a metal guy, work on metal stuff or country or pop. Anything that is your strength. Play to that because it's going to be truest to who you are and it's going to sound the best and you'll probably be proudest of that work. I would say also listen to other types of music to draw influences from. Don't just stay in one groove all the time. So if you're thinking about doing a solo album, start listening to ethnic music or world music, or start listening to, if you're a metal guy or a rock guy, start listening to some pop. Listen to what they're doing with their chord changes and with their beats, and draw some influences from that and pull that into your own style. One other suggestion I can make is, play to some drum beats. Pull up some drum beats on YouTube, just funk tracks or country tracks or rock tracks, whatever kind of music you're into. Pull up those kind of solo drum beats, and you can be inspired to write songs around grooves. Sometimes a certain groove will just help you create a riff that you never would have thought of just by itself if you're playing guitar. So inspire yourself with drum beats and bass grooves, and try that out. If you can play bass, work on your bass parts first. Take a drum track and do bass parts first, right? And then write your guitar parts around the bass. So do it in reverse. Get yourself out of maybe a rut or a groove that you're normally in, just to get something new out of yourself, even if it's just for 1 or 2 songs. So try that. Be eclectic in your taste. Listen to a lot of different things. Listen to some drum beats and some bass grooves and some different styles to get riffs going on in your head, and go from there. Don't rush it, and pace yourself. Be patient and and finish it. If you start a song, finish the song. Even if you don't like it, finish it and then move on to your next one, and then finish it. And if you're going to work on an album, finish the record, even if it's an EP. So what you start, you got to finish it and come back to it later. You may not be happy with a particular song. 2 days later, you'll forget what you didn't like about it, and you'll go back with a fresh set of ears, and you'll like it, or you'll like it better, and then you'll come back and record more on it. But you gotta keep yourself committed and convicted to finish it. So start the project and see it through to its conclusion. Okay, that's what I would recommend. And practice a lot. All right, the next question comes from Licks of the Legend. When you write instrumentals songs, how do you create them? Do you pick a key to write them in and pick a mode for a particular vibe, or do you just build on an idea you stumble upon that sounds cool? Well, sometimes I do stumble upon an idea. I'll be jamming on something and I'll have a riff that I'm like, I gotta write a song around this riff. My intro that I have on my channel, that's a song that I wrote, and that's just a riff out of that intro is basically a riff. I don't know if you can hear this or not, but so that riff is like. All right, so I came up with that riff, right? And then I thought, well, that's a really cool chorus riff. So that's my chorus for that instrumental song. And then I built upon that, and I came up with, with a verse part that goes, which you don't hear that in the intro, but there's a riff that goes like that for the verse, right? And once I track those parts, I write a melody around it. If you're doing instrumental music, listen to instrumental players that you admire. My biggest hero for instrumental music is Joe Satriani. I love Steve Vai as well, and Eric Johnson. Those two are also huge influences of mine, but Joe is really my #1 influence for instrumental music because he's so lyrical in the way that he writes melodies. He does call and response melodies, and he's a blues based player, and that's what I like best in rock and roll. I like blues based guys like Bonamassa and back to like Page and Beck and those guys. That's where my roots are. That's what I grew up listening to, and that's what I love. So back to your question, I don't really try to pick a particular mode or a key. I don't think to myself, oh, I'm going to write in C, or I'm going to write this riff in A. Typically speaking, guitar riffs and guitar songs are best in certain keys like E because of open strings, or G major, D, A, where you can do a lot of open string stuff. So I lend myself to those keys the most because they're guitar keys. B is great, B minor, A, E, G, D. You can do a lot of cool things in those keys from a guitar riff perspective. One thing that I just touched on this on my last question is I'll get a drum beat a lot of times. If I don't have a riff or an idea in my head, I will have a drum beat. I'll put a drum beat on, whether it's on YouTube. There's tons of drum tracks. If you've got a MIDI, like a drum program like Perfect Drums or BFD or whatever. Superior Drummer, I guess, is one of them. Easy Drummer, you can get really cheap drum packs with MIDI drum files and run those patterns and create drum beats, or just have drums that are already pre-programmed in those MIDI files, and you can create a lot of cool riffs. A lot of times you can get a kit, a pack that says funk, or a metal pack, or a blues pack, or a country pack. There's different packs or a whole assortment of beats, and they're just cool drum beats that you can edit or just leave alone and write riffs around it. Slow them down, speed them up, and there's fills, and there's all kinds of different cool things that you can do. And it's not that complicated. Once you start working with it, it gets easier. But I write around drum patterns. They inspire me to write riffs. And I touched on it on my last question as well. I'll record a bass part sometimes over a drum. If I don't know what I'm going to do with my guitar, I'll do the bass first, and then I layer guitars around that bass because it makes me play completely different. I feel like I'm playing to a band and treating it kind of like a session. So that's what I do. Drum loops are cool too. You can buy drum loops and use drum loops. Loops are a blast. Or get a drum machine. Just a drum machine, man, playing through like a little amp. The next question comes from Deputy Van Halen 5150. Deputy Van Halen, one of my best YouTube subscribers, man. He interacts with me like on a daily basis. I love it. You have a most excellent killer amp collection. Thank you. Do you have any plans to add a 5153 amp to your collection? Have you ever tried a 6505 amp line? With your experience, what would your opinion be? What do you feel would be the better money, a 5150 versus a PV6505? Rock on, Marty. All right, so I did own a 5153 amp. I owned one. If you listen to the Snow Black Sunday records, they were all done with a 5153 as well as my Dead Hollywood Stuntman record. It was a beautiful amp. I loved it. But I like EL34 tubes better, and I wound up selling my 5153 about 9 years ago, and I bought my Friedman BE 100. So I got rid of my 5153 half stack that I had for my BE 100, which I like better. Now I've never, I don't think I've tried a 6505, but the 6505 is the same thing as a 5150, okay? And there's been tests and tests and tests done. The 5150 block letter, the 5150 non-block letters, they all sound the same, like the original PVs, the 6505s. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, the 5150 is a noisy amp. It's kind of, there's no clean channel. Not that many of us use clean, but it's super high gain and compressed, and it's really good for a lot of really deep, heavy drop tune metal. That's the really heavy, hardcore metal guys love that amp because it's just a metal of doom. That's just not my thing. I respect it and I like it, but I was never a fan of Eddie's super high gain 5150 tone I liked that the Soldano type tone he got on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and his wide stereo tone he had on Balance. But after that, like on A Different Kind of Truth and on Van Halen 3 and stuff, and I just never was a big fan of that super high gain compressed sound. So that's just not my thing. I like EL34s. I like the sound of a Marshall better. I like less distortion, although the BE100 can really distort. It's got a sag to it that's really sweet. It sounds like a hot rodded Marshall, but you can dial that back on a BE and get it to clean up pretty good. So, but yeah, I owned a 5153. I thought it was great. I just wanted the Friedman. I thought the Friedman had the sound, and that's the sound I've stuck with for many years now. But whatever suits your needs is what you should go with. The 5150s and the PVs, the EVH amps, they're excellent. The 5150 Iconic amplifiers sound awesome. I know that question wasn't about the Iconics, but the Iconic combo amps, holy smokes, man. The Iconic, great amp. Those are awesome. I'm thinking about getting me an Iconic. A 5153 with EL34s would be a great option too. Those 50 watt EL34 5153s, the black ones, sweet. All right, Love Muppets asks, are you proficient at sweep picking? I've never heard you do it. That is the most difficult guitar technique I've ever tried. Okay, I'm not proficient at sweep picking. I play to my strengths, man. I play to what I do best. So what you hear me do on the channel is what I feel I do my best. I always put my best foot forward because, I'm nervous, man. I don't want to look like I suck, even though there's a lot of times I think I kind of do. But sweep picking, I'm not proficient at it, but I can sweep pick. I can do some sweeps. There are certain techniques that I'm able to do, some minor arpeggios and some diminished things, but it's not something that I was never inspired by players that could really sweep pick. Back in the 80s, it was around, right? But it was more alternate picking, and I focused all my energies on alternate picking, and even on arpeggios. I alternate pick arpeggios, and then that turned into hybrid picking, where you might do a little bit with your fingers, or you might do some sweep and some alternate picking. Yeah, I work on it from time to time with the metronome, so I'm trying to get better at sweep picking, and I can do some of it pretty good, but I don't showcase it. It is difficult because you approach it totally different than you do alternate picking and things like that, and if you're just not used to it, it's weird. You got to play with a metronome, and a lot of those guys that do sweep picking, they do 2 or 3 arpeggios all the time that they do really good. So if you can get those arpeggios or those chord patterns down in the timing, then you got it made. You got to have a lot of high gain, a lot of gain, really low action, compressed signal. All right, Mark Fry 4723 asks, in some of your intros that are about EVH, you play Panama, and when it comes to the part where he typically does the harmonics before heading into the chorus, you like to bring it up a third or fifth. Maybe you could show us what you're doing there. Well, if in Panama, I kind of copy what Eddie does live, but Eddie does, all Eddie's doing is a he's doing a B sus4, like, but he takes that sus4 and he brings it up to the high E string, like that. That's what it would look like if you fretted it, but you gotta go. So he's hitting a harmonic on the 5th fret, high E, then the 4th on the B, and the 4th on the G. So the first part is. So, like that. So I'm just hitting a harmonic. And that's what Eddie does. I kind of copy what he does on some of the live videos where he doesn't quite play it just like the record. He kind of breaks it up a little bit. And that was the cool thing about Eddie was, you know, it sounded like his equipment or his riffs were always trying to explode. They were always, his equipment always just had that ready to just break apart sound, and his playing had that feel to it also. So I try to replicate that with that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing harmonics on the high E, the B, and the G on the 5th and 4th frets. And that's what he's doing on the record. I just break it up a little bit differently. Like I wish I knew if it was. I think he does it on Live Without a Net like that. All right, the next question is from Rafi Velke 4527. Have you ever wanted to do a Kramer 5150 replica project? Well, you know, I have done some Frankie and 5150 style projects on my channel. I'm not sure how long you've been a subscriber, but a lot of my videos in the past show some of my Van Halen guitars. I did a OU812 Kramer that is pretty cool, and I've got a Diver Down 1984 slash kind of 5150 looking replica. I haven't done a 5150 replica with a hockey stick and the space tape, just like the 5150. So you know, you're kind of making me want to do one. But I've done a lot of Van Halen striped replica guitars and a few on the channel. Haven't done a 5150 yet, but that'd be kind of cool. I just recently did a demo of a 5150 Stripe series, and I really love that guitar. The matte finish on it was so cool. So yeah, I'd like to do a 5150 replica. I've kind of done similar guitars to the 5150. All right, next question, Victor Isar. If there's more to your name, I'm sorry, it didn't show up. Any suggestions for a good beginner audio interface? I'd love to utilize my PC as an amp. Last name is pronounced like yes sirree. Okay. Without a Y. L. O. Okay, Isari. Cool. Victor Isari. Well, what I would recommend, I mean, I just have this, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but this is a Focusrite Scarlett 2-channel input. That's all I need. All I do is record stereo tracks for YouTube, and when I do my instrumental songs, I use MIDI drums and I use bass and MIDI keys and all that stuff. So I'm not recording a live band. But for a beginner audio interface, I would recommend getting a Mac. You know, PC is okay, but I'd recommend a Mac. I would get a Mac Mini. I'm going to ditch this old iMac probably in the next year. This thing is from 2012. I've got Pro Tools 11 on it, and that's the only reason I use it, is because I've got Pro Tools and I own it, and I don't want to get something newer that has newer software that I won't be able to use Pro Tools 11 anymore. I'll have to move over to Logic or something, and I've probably got 1,000 Pro Tools sessions that I don't want to not have access to. But I want to get a Mac Mini. You can pick up Mac Minis for like $300-400 used with a really nice big monitor, and you can get these Scarlett Focusrite 2-channel interfaces for a couple $100, man, $150-200, and they are plug and play. They automatically work with all the DAWs that are out there flawlessly, and they sound great. There's a lot of different interfaces, but I can recommend this one because I use it, and I don't have any latency issues or any compatibility problems with it. So yeah, I'd get a Focusrite, a Scarlett. Just check to make sure whatever computer you're using, that the USBs or the inputs on the computer you have are compatible with what the outputs are for the interface that you purchase. It should be, but just be sure, be careful with that. Compatibility. Next question comes from Ash Dumbler EVH. How can I develop faster and accurate alternate picking speeds like EVH? Well, there's quick, I mean, I guess I could do a whole video on this. That would be kind of a good lesson, I suppose, but you know, there's a couple things that you need to do. Everyone always says, you know, practice slowly, and you do have to practice slowly, but one thing you want to make sure that you do, and if you, hopefully you can see this is kind of awkward holding my guitar like this, but you don't want to have your hand far away from the strings. I see a lot of beginner players, they pick way up high. You want to always rest your hand relaxed on the strings, right? And then there's very minimal motion with your picking hand, and you don't move your hand like this or your wrist. You're going to move mostly, you know, your fingers like this, okay? And you have to hold yourself accountable for always going downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. So, and learn a scale. For instance, learn a major scale up all 6 strings. All right. Practice to a metronome if you have to, but the biggest thing is get that string skipping down, where it's always down, up, down, up, down, up. There's patterns that you can do. You can do, when I was learning alternate picking back when I was 15, you can do patterns like, for example, a major scale is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Well, you can go every other note like that. You can go up 3 and then back to 1, and then go to the next string, go up 3 and back down 1. That helps you with your picking. You can go up 4 and then go to the second note and up 4, then third, and that works your brain and your hand, and it gets the sequencing down between your right and your left hand. So what you want to do is make sure your right and your left hand are in sequence with each other. And practicing patterns like that, it's like chewing bubble gum and rubbing your belly and tapping your head at the same time. You kind of learn how to do it in sequence, and don't tense up your hand or your wrist, right? You can do patterns. You can go up the fretboard like this. You can just do. You can do chromatics. Okay, like that. And then eventually, when you get that down, it turns into butterfly picking, like. And at that point, I'm starting to use more of my wrist. Stuff like that. So just practice major scales slowly, learn different patterns and sequences, and watch your hand and make sure you're up, down, up, down, up, down. Don't keep your pick too far away from the strings. And work it like that, and eventually you'll get so much better at it, you'll get faster at it, and then push yourself to go faster. Even if it's sloppy, push yourself to go faster. And eventually you'll build your speed. But it takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of time. That was a little sloppy right there because I was holding my guitar in a weird position, but that's my tricks. That's how you do it. Well, what works for me anyway, or worked for me. All right, is the intro outro music, this is from Bihar, is the intro slash outro music of your videos Marty 5150 originals? Thanks, love the videos. Well, thank you. I appreciate, your support. Yeah, my intro and outro music are my originals. I write my own original music for fun and for YouTube. So, and when I was in bands, they would a lot of times turn into songs with lyrics. But they are my originals. So I really have lost faith in trying to promote my own music on YouTube. Or for record deals and stuff like that. So I use my YouTube channel to for my own kicks, to promote my own music. Not really promote it, but to share it with everybody. Gives me a vehicle to use my originals. All right, next question is Eric Zajac 5237. Passive or active, pros and cons. All right, I like passive pickups because they don't have as much high gain. I like lower gain amps, and I like the pickups to not color the amp. I like the pickups to make, I like passive pickups. I think they make the guitar sound more organic, and they make the amp sound more like the amp. Active pickups are good though. They're loud, but they're if you like a sound that's a little more compressed and a little bit more mid-rangey, in my opinion, then active pickups are the way for you to go, okay? You can play a little bit faster with active pickups because there's more compression and a little bit more gain, so you can hide, maybe a little bit of sloppiness more with active pickups. I think passive pickups have a more attack to them, and they sound a lot more aggressive. Eddie played through passive pickups. All my heroes in the 70s and most of them in the 80s played through with passive pickups. Now I'm a big Metallica fan. Metallica used active pickups, and lately I heard that Kirk and James are kind of leaning more towards passive pickups, but maybe they're just like ready to try something different. They've been doing the same thing for too long. But I like passive pickups. I like the way that they sound. I like less distortion and less gain. I like for the amp to breathe more. Plus, with active pickups, you need batteries, and I hate putting batteries in guitars. There's more stuff that can go wrong with active pickups. Can't speak. There's more wiring and more stuff. Okay, Jeff Lowry, 395. Jeff, what's up, Jeff? What's the most obscure, valuable, odd guitar you've had to tinker with at work? Well, recently I posted a video on a 59 Junior. A Les Paul Junior came in that somebody's dad gifted them. That he had an older father who used to play it way back in the day, and so that was one of the more valuable guitars. Those are worth about $8,000 or $9,000. I work on, I do a lot of setups on really expensive Martins. Nashville's a songwriter town and a lot of acoustic players, and there's guys that really sink a lot of money into these really beautiful Martins. So almost on a daily basis, I'm working on Martins that are as expensive as a cheap used car. And it's like, it kind of makes you nervous because you don't want to drop a tool on them, an Allen wrench or something. As far as obscure guitars, I work on some real clunkers, man. There's some guitars that come in that make you scratch your head. There's some stuff that people put together, some parts casters and things that are interesting, that just don't work, and that may never work right. So I don't think they're really obscure. I haven't seen anything at my shop that's been something that was extremely rare or just weird. Not yet, although there's always some bizarre shapes or brands that you're like, wow, what the heck is this? But nothing too obscure, but valuable. Probably that 59 Junior or some of the 0018s Martins, or some really old vintage Martins that are from like the 60s. Working on some of them. Those are pretty valuable. So, but it's hard to mess up a guitar, man. So you just kind of got to go with the flow and take your time. But acoustics kind of make me nervous because they're fragile. They seem fragile anyway, and they're a little bit more delicate to work with than an electric, like a Telecaster. I mean, Telecaster is like a plank of wood. You can't do much damage to it. And most of the Tellies that come in that are older, they look like they've been dragged behind a garbage truck for months. So, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. You're like, okay, let me just mess with this thing. All right, last question is from Yinum.I. Yinumi, maybe? When you gonna do a Def Leppard White Lightning solo tutorial, Marty? All the best for the new year. Well, Happy New Year to you. All the best. Happy holidays, man. You know, I haven't really thought of doing a White Lightning solo. I can look into it. I've been wanting to do another Def Leppard lesson. I haven't touched on Def Leppard for a while, so let me check that one out, man. I don't know how to play it. I did at one point, but I'd have to revisit it. But it's time. Def Leppard's overdue, right? So thanks for the reminder. All right, well, that does it for today's video. Thanks for everybody that submitted their questions. I hope you found my answers helpful and you found this interesting. If you did, please comment below. If you want me to do more of these, please let me know. I appreciate everybody that watches the channel. Thanks for an awesome year. It's not over yet, but I just wanted to let you know in this video that I do value everybody that watches and comments and subscribes or just stops by the channel. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you watching. And as always, have a great day. Peace out.